Hello, everyone. Welcome to Rewinded Dynamite. It's John Pollock and Wai Ting, who is here with us for one more night.
One more for the time being. Yeah. This is my last show before I go on paternity leave starting tomorrow. So,
Yeah.
I'm gonna miss you guys.
Yeah. Well, it got a little tense off air because Wai showed up tonight with a bat and he told me he's not angry with me. He's just disappointed. And then he took out my laptop and he just stormed out of the place. So, you're
Start
not
smashing
angry,
things.
just disappointed.
Yeah.
Well, yes, Chris Jericho and Wai Ting gone for the time being, but we have lots to talk about for the season finale of Wai Ting, as we are going to be getting into the news, Dynamite, and we will talk a bit about Dark Side of the Ring, covering Leon White, Vader, that aired on Tuesday night as well. But we're going to get right into things. A very sad note off the top, and that was issued by GCW tonight, noting the passing of Sondra Culbertson, who was the wife of Nick Gage. She died last week at the age of 43 on April 1st. Not really a lot of other details. You're probably familiar with her to the extent that you saw her in the episode of Dark Side of the Ring that covered Nick Gage a number of seasons ago. They had been those two had been together for around like 26 years. So, I mean, it's a very sad story. Obviously, the very tragic story when you're talking about a woman who was 43 years of age. So we certainly send our condolences off the top of the show. Some legal updates to get into. So Cain Velasquez, he is currently being held in the Wasco State Prison. This is according to the California Incarcerated Records and Information Search. And what it is listing is that in the database, it states that his parole could be available as soon as a year from now. So we'd be looking at March of 2026, although it is noted that date could adjust. But his eligibility, it could be moved forward or delayed. It depends on a number of factors. It says participation in rehabilitative programming could get Velasquez out sooner than his projected exit. For example, on the flip side, his parole date could get pushed down the line if he disobeys the prison's institutional rules. So, of course, he had recently been sentenced to 5 years, and I mean, realistically, he could be out within a year. So that, as we spoke about it at the time, Wai, I mean, he was like, this was a gift that he was handed. The fact that he is looking at potentially 12 months in prison for what could have been, like, no exaggeration, it could have been a life sentence that he could have received here.
Yeah. I don't know if you're Kane or Kane's family, how you could look at this as anything but um something to be incredibly grateful over. And the chance of parole, perhaps even earlier than that, clearly, his is a case that has drawn way more sympathy than I actually imagined, within the courts.
Yeah, I mean, you can. Everyone has had this discussion, and there's like this free Cain movement, and I think there's a lot of sympathy towards Cain Velasquez. At the same time, I think there's an understanding that, and Cain Velasquez would be the first one, I think,
Mhm.
to state this, is that I made a mistake. I cannot go about like going with like vigilante justice as the answer here. This was a 8-mile chase he had that the police followed him. There were shots fired in like residential areas. I mean, this could have been significantly more tragic than an individual getting shot in the arm,
Mhm.
which was not the intended target either. Like, this could have been so much worse. And but that is the situation. We'll stay with another legal story, and this was first reported by PWInsider.com, that Tammy Sytch, who herself she is serving a prison sentence that will last until November of 2039. This over the manslaughter charge against Julian Lasseter when she was driving under the influence back in March of 2022. And there was separately the Julian Lasseter family. The estate filed a civil case against Tammy Sytch, and they have reached a settlement, and she has been ordered to pay $5 million to the estate over all of this. Now, I don't think any of us have to get into Tammy Sytch's finances, but I would hazard to guess she is not capable of paying $5 million. So I don't think this is one of those situations where I don't even know what the Lasseter family could be expecting in a situation like this, and Tammy Sytch will be in prison most likely for the better part of the next 14 years as well.
Yeah, and I guess in the event that she might have any property or any sort of belongings, I don't know if there's something that that might go towards that $5 million. If in 14 years somehow she gets to, I don't know, write a tell-all book or something like that. I maybe there's some sort of thing that says that the money will go towards this family. It's a mess all around, and perhaps a case where somebody is not getting that much sympathy.
No, I mean it's just a really, really tragic tale of Tammy Sytch, and it's ended in like one of like, could you imagine like in this where you are looking at, you know, the next 15 years of your life that will be completely behind bars on top of it, and for someone that had so many chances as well. I mean, there is, I think, to a degree, an understanding of the battles of alcoholism. But when you're talking about somebody with the level of DUIs that this woman had,
some could say she got off easy with
because
only 14, 15.
Julian Lasseter sure didn't get off easy. This was an innocent person at a stop sign or at a red light and died through no fault of his own as well. It's like a person like that should not be on the road or enjoying the freedoms of life when you have, you know, irreversibly affected another family's entire life as well. Let us get on to some more happy stories. Well, maybe happy if you have spent some of your life savings on SmackDown tickets for Las Vegas next week, part of WWE's takeover of Las Vegas. They have now started advertising John Cena for the night before WrestleMania. This would be the April 18th edition of SmackDown. So it looks like we will get presumably one television appearance from Cena before the match with Cody Rhodes, and it will be in Las Vegas. Maybe he's going to take in the roast that weekend. I wonder what Cena's itinerary is going to look like beyond wrestling Cody Rhodes.
I wonder. I mean, I would imagine it would be at least some outside media just to kind of maybe get some of that final push towards the show.
John Cena's final roast. I mean, it's that part of the retirement countdown. He gets roasted on his final WrestleMania.
He's retiring from wrestling. There's nothing that says he's retiring from roasting. Okay, so he's got plenty of roasting left in his life, I imagine. But your final push towards WrestleMania, will we get anything substantive in terms of story? I don't know. Something tells me we've kind of already told as much story as we're going to tell. Will we finally talk about The Rock on this SmackDown in Las Vegas?
Who? What kind of reaction do you expect Cena to get in Vegas the night before Mania?
I think similar to what we've been seeing, you know, maybe a mixture of applause and also cheers. I think it largely depends on how the segment is crafted, of course, but he's going to get a superstar's reaction. He is, I think, entering WrestleMania. Maybe we could say as the biggest star. Would you agree? Of either night, more than Cody, I would say.
Probably.
Yeah. So he's going to get a major star power driven reaction, and I think you'll still see 50-50 chance all the way till WrestleMania night.
Well, we continue, and maybe this is shaping up to be this generation's Montreal. I'm talking about the Tiffany Stratton, Charlotte Flair segment, and I mean, sometimes it's just amazing when you see this.
I take it all back. Tiffany Stratton, Charlotte Flair, the biggest feud heading into WrestleMania.
You know, you have this segment that everyone is talking about, so naturally, let's send Tiffany Stratton out to do media, and let's see what that generates. And she ended up on the Babyface podcast, and the two hosts, they asked Tiffany Stratton about this segment from last Friday, and here in Tiffany Stratton's own words was her reaction to this segment with Charlotte Flair.
I think, you know, being so new into this business, being so new as champion, I don't think, you know, she really expected me to stand up to her, and I don't think she expected me to I guess almost clap back. And I think I kind of, look, all I have to say is it's live TV. Stakes are high. We're going into WrestleMania. I have the title. I want to keep the title. And I'm gonna pull out every stop that I can. And people want to see our match. And I think that we did a very good job of getting people wanting to see our match and invested in our story. And now I'm ready to put on the best women's match ever, and I'm ready to go to war.
So setting the bar low, we're now going to have the greatest women's match of all time coming up.
Well, you always want to, an athlete always wants to think of themselves as the best, right?
Do you remember that year Jeff Hardy was booked on Wrestle Kingdom? He said he was going to go out and have the greatest match in the history of the Tokyo Dome. He did not.
Again, I guess you always want to go in with that mentality, whether or not, that might be a bit too ambitious. Well, at least maybe you could say you tried. Yeah. It's interesting hearing that because I actually read that quote before actually listening to it right now. And in reading it, I definitely, at this point, like, we all have to be aware of what exactly the game is. They have to know that the attention that this thing has been getting, whether or not intentional at the beginning, has really worked to their benefit. So how will they play with that attention? Will they attempt any sort of like work shoot? And in reading the transcript of the answer, it felt very much like that to me. Like, okay, like they're just kind of rolling with it. Like, clearly she's just trying to
This is
continue
the
to build some
only meat
animosity.
that this program has. There was like even the segment from a few weeks ago, it didn't come out of it like it was this
No.
like it didn't have the same reaction to this one where it just there is suddenly like an interest of just seeing these two women, how you continue this program together, that you've introduced something like this. I think you have to somewhat acknowledge it to some extent within.
It'd be silly not to. They've kind of struck gold actually. So, but then in listening to it, I think I started to have second thoughts because I don't think she's that great of an actress. And I thought the answer was actually a really great performance if it was, an intentional type of, I guess we could say shoot answer. Like it seemed to me like she was maybe pressed about the question. She started talking and then she held back and then kind of reverted to kayfabe. Now, like, that seems to me like a perfect way to still convey the idea that this is real, right? And I just don't give her enough that much credit for being like that good at acting to be able to pull that off. So I don't exactly know what's happening. I'm sure they're being talked to and they're being told, hey, run with this in some way, guys. But to what extent? Like, clearly they're not being told to completely ignore the answers in when pressed about it, or the questions when they're pressed about it. What do you think? What's your assessment?
I bet you it's not as crafted and planned out from Friday in terms of the fact that this segment happened. I think in the moment, everyone knew this was a total train wreck, but the reaction to the segment, I mean, they have not been in an arena together since. They will be this Friday, and I'm sure they'll be sitting down and like, what are the next steps here? What's our segment that we have planned for this Friday, and go from there. But you've had a whole week for the two to see of all this reaction. And I mean, there is that curiosity to see the segments that they have left and the match on top of it for that weekend. But, this is a program that had, I think, very minimal buzz to it. And for better or worse, whether you agree or disagree with how they went about it on Friday, you have come out of it with the understanding of like creating this real grudge between these two that is the goal of these segments ultimately. But as we have seen many occasions over the past years, there are times that you push a button in a promo and it's going to have a real consequence when the other party is not privy to what's coming their way, and that you two are still working in concert together to produce this program.
Yeah, I think at this point we could expect Charlotte to get one of the bigger reactions, maybe one of the biggest reactions on SmackDown. I'm very curious to see if they could play that up all the way until the evening of WrestleMania as well. Yeah.
We go to NXT from Tuesday night, and some of the highlights from the show we did get after appearing at one of the NXT live events over the weekend. Giulia returning to television And after Jada Parker and Jordan Grace fought to a no contest, it was Stephanie Vaquer deciding who is going to be my opponent at Stand and Deliver. And you know that she has fully acclimated to WWE because she wants a multi-person match over WrestleMania weekend. So we're going to get a 4-way match at Stand and Deliver. This underneath the 3-way match for the NXT Championship.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. This everything with Giulia has certainly been a bit strange. Clearly they must have had good reason to take the title off of her, and whatever those reasons may be, they obviously aren't an issue now. So maybe somewhat convenient that this was a multi-person match anyway, and then adding one extra person and Giulia, a big star at that. Kind of feels like it's not really changing too much. They're not really changing up a story or anything. In fact, they're adding more story to it. So, in NXT, it doesn't bother me so much, John, because ultimately, like, this is still a place for people to get experience. It's a place for developmental, like, exposure. So it doesn't feel like we're losing that much by not having these singles grudges,
How far away are we from 2-night Stand and Delivers?
First night will be Evolve.
No, it's very easy. Night 1 is Stand. Night 2, they deliver.
Yes. Sure.
I only say that half jokingly. That I could very realistically see a Saturday, Sunday afternoon show from NXT in the future. They're just trying to get everybody on these cards. Like this is their big show of the whole weekend, and they've got probably a 3-hour window to get all of these people on. And there's a lot of names, and we're gonna continue to see it. They're doing this number 1 contenders match next week for Ricky Saint's title. That's another one. You could definitely see like a multi-person match coming out of that one as well. We also have the 6-woman ladder match for the vacant title, Sol Ruka and Izzy Dame qualifying, and they joined Zarya and Kalani Jordan. And we got the in-ring debut of Dark State.
That we did.
Yes, beating Oba Femi, Trick Williams, and Javon Evans after Oba and Trick brawled to the back, leaving Javon Evans all by his lonesome there. But yes, there will be the 4-way next week to determine who Ricky Saint's opponent will be at Stand and Deliver. They're also doing a gauntlet next week to determine who faces Fraxium with Josh Briggs and Yoshiki Inamura, Hank and Tank, that they're poising to eventually get a big win. I don't know if I'd be looking for them to win this match, but they are kind of setting that up. Nico Vance and Brooks Jensen, Tyson DuPont and Tyreek Igwe, and Tavion Heights, who is also working Bloodsport that weekend, and Miles Bourne. That's in the gauntlet next week. Unfortunately, they already vanquished Swipe Right. Did you get to see Swipe Right?
Yes, I did.
Oh, this team's great.
I'm appreciating the Evolve linkage here on NXT. It's I think it's a great way to promote essentially NXT's developmental show. And these two are, how old are they?
Oh, they're
like have we set a new
Baylor in particular is
have we set a new Julia Hart sort of a barometer at this point? Like is this who we can call as like the new sort of level of just realizing how old you and I are?
I'm not seeing a date here for a date of birth, at least for Brad Baylor, who looks
probably
the
have a
younger
lot
of the two.
They probably have a lot of years left, before main roster call up, but they feel very comfortable on TV and in ring. I thought they seemed very capable. So
yeah. When Brad Baylor is launching a YouTube channel that is Young Stud 9152, I mean, that I can use Young Stud for many years. I can get out of this YouTube channel. He's got to be definitely very, very young. All right, so those are the NXT notes from Tuesday night, and then we move on over to the latest inductees for the Hall of Fame. They've announced the legacy inductees for next weekend. We have Dory Funk Jr., Kamala, and Ivan Koloff. With Dory Funk Sr., maybe they'll have Dory Funk Jr. Induct him. Maybe they'll bring Dory Funk Jr. to
I guess, do they usually have individual inductee or inductors?
No, not for the legacy inductees. These are more just kind of casual mentions on the show. But all three of these, like, you can certainly make your cases. Like Dory Funk Sr., I mean, first of all, was somebody that, yes, he was a, pretty noteworthy wrestler, but it was when he bought into a piece of Amarillo that he became one of the big power brokers in Texas. He mentored Eddie Graham. He trained a lot of guys. And then, he had a very tragic death where he was wrestling on his ranch with Les Thornton one night and ends up having a heart attack. And they rush him to the hospital. And then they sent him, the first hospital they went to, they sent him to the larger hospital in San Antonio that was 90 minutes away. And Terry was driving his father, didn't make it. And that was something that Terry said, like, haunted him for years, that he couldn't get his father there in time, and whether they had just gone to the San Antonio hospital first instead of going to the closest one. I mean, it's a very sad story. He was only 54 when he died. People think Dory Sr. was a lot older than he was when he died. Kamala, he started his career, he wrestled as Sugar Bear Harris, as Bad News Harris, and he always credited the Great Mephisto for coming up with the Kamala character when he was actually in Europe. But then it was taking it to Memphis that Jerry Lawler and Jerry Jarrett kind of helped evolve the character and shot the vignettes in Jerry Jarrett's backyard. A character that probably would not be as received in such fashion today, but in the 80s, it was more than welcome in professional wrestling. But, he was somebody that low key, he traveled to a lot of significant territories and had his successes in beyond Memphis, like World Class. He had his runs in Mid-South, and he had 3 separate runs in WWF. He came in 84 with Freddie Blassie. Then he came back in 86 and he had Curtis Iakea as his mouthpiece. And this was his most successful one because he got a great run with Hulk Hogan throughout like mid to late 86 and then into 87. They drew some tremendous attendances together on the road. He was one of Hogan's better drawing opponents during that period. And then he came back for the last run in 92, where he worked with The Undertaker and then did the babyface run with Slick. But continued to wrestle for a number of years, then had health problems where a portion of both of his legs ended up amputated, and he died from COVID right in the midst of it in 2020. And then you have Ivan Koloff, who was born in Ottawa, Ontario, a Canadian, and he wrestled for decades and was a star in many different territories, from Montreal, that's where he was promoted as Ivan Koloff, as the nephew of Don Koloff. And then he went to the WWF on several occasions, but was the winner of a very, very famous match in January of 1971, ending Bruno Sammartino's 7.5-year title run. And it's this legendary match that of the video that it exists from it. It was just this, the 3 count is counted and it's just like silence at Madison Square Garden. They just could not believe Bruno Sammartino had lost. And it was only a 3-week title reign. And then he drops it to Pedro Morales and pretty much leaves the territory, but would come back in 75 for matches with Sammartino when he had won the title. But also a star in Georgia, big run in Australia with Gary Hart. And then, of course, going to Jim Crockett Promotions, where he was with Nikita Koloff as well, his nephew, and then died from liver cancer in 2017. So those are your inductees joining the class. I've got to say, for these Paul Levesque pieces, we're getting every week on TV, it's a new Paul Levesque kind of chapter of his career. Today on YouTube, they uploaded a video where it's different talent all being asked, what's the best advice that Paul Levesque gave you? And it's just one talent after the other. Just tell me how Jesus Christ himself changed your life. It's just, it is what it is. But that's your headliner going in this year.
Yeah.
Who's inducting Paul Levesque, by the way?
Well, we kind of discussed potential options at the time, right? I think maybe most would assume Michaels.
I'm thinking Michaels or Stephanie or Undertaker, or maybe all of them, to be honest.
Yeah.
After they did the whole reveal at the headquarters, they could do something.
Flair show up?
Flair has said you know, he's still under contract to AEW, which I think is somewhat surprising. Yeah, he's still under a deal, and it sounds like sounds unlikely that he would be there. And more to the point, why we're not going to see him on WWE TV either for all of this Cena talk.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Because didn't he actually accept an induction while being a part of AEW at the time, or was he not under contract when he got in with the Horsemen?
That was with TNA. That was with TNA that he went in with the Horsemen.
Oh, okay. That long ago. Yeah, must be getting my timelines mixed up.
Yeah, TNA allowed him to go do
Right.
that. That was the one where it was, we'll let you take Flair and then we get Christian for one night at the pay-per-view. And that was a wonderful trade for TNA. All right. And final ratings notes. We go back, SmackDown last Friday, 1,578,000 viewers and a 0.47 in the demo. Raw on Monday, they had 2.9 million global views, so a bit down this week. And they ranked 8th globally, 6th in the US. SmackDown only ranked in the top 10 in one country worldwide. Do you want to guess what country? Canada, number 10. All right. So there you have it.
We love our wrestling.
The only country that truly cared about the favor. There you have it. And Collision on Saturday, 335,000 viewers, dropping 1% from last week and a 0.08 down from a 0.09. They were third on cable for the night with the UFC Fight Night topping it. And NXT did 683,000 viewers last night, up 5%, and their highest 18 to 49 audience since February 25th with a 0.17. In fact, the last half hour of the show, they were number one in 18 to 34 among all networks like NBC, CBS, Fox. NXT was number one from 9:30 till 10. So Dark State tapping into that young audience.
Must be.
A feather in their cap. All right. All of your news can be found at postwrestling.com. That is where you can get up to date on everything going on in the world of professional wrestling. And now it is time to get into our review of AEW Dynamite.
Rewind the Dynamite from the post-wrestling site. AEW, lighting up the fuse. Sit back and enjoy the bubbly, as we hear from John and Wai Ting. Where we're going, we don't need roads, and if the buck stops here, this thing might blow. Everything you hear are opinions of the show, and if you don't like it, go to the forums and let them know.
Yes, it is John Pollock and Wai Ting, and this week, from Raw to Dynamite, I am 0 for 2 on my graphic selections.
Okay, so on Monday, what did you choose?
I went with the War Raiders and New Day.
Mm-hmm.
My goal is to pick what is the most what is going to be the most significant thing on this show, and
for Dynamite, you chose Pac
Swerve
versus
and
Swerve.
Pac.
Well, I mean, in some ways, I think that ended up being the most
something noteworthy came out of that match.
Yeah.
Was not supposed to, but did. So yes, we will be getting into all of that. I do want to alert people that today on Pollock and Thurston, we had two guests on the show. Brandon Ross of Lightshed, returning media analyst, talking all about the economic factors that could impact the UFC, WWE this year. It was actually comical that within minutes of our show ending, Donald Trump put a 90-day pause on these tariffs. But regardless, the economy is a mess, and a pause is not going to change that. So a lot of great insight, especially into the UFC rights being up this year, and WWE, the 3 months into the move to Netflix. And Brandon Ross will also be in attendance at WrestleMania next week as well. Plus, if that's not all, Richard Deitch from The Athletic also with us on the show as we talked about more of the WWE Netflix relationship that we have seen this many months in, and sort of the company's business momentum heading into WrestleMania as well. So I thought they were two really great conversations that we had on today's show, if you want to look that up. And coming up in the next few days, we are going to have Post Pro Res with WH Park and Karen Peterson. And on Saturday, a review of Windy City Riot that will be free for everybody here on the YouTube channel and in your podcast feed. They will be going through the show in Chicago. And then we are going into the weekend with Collision Course and the NWA podcast on Sunday night.
And then Monday, it's WrestleMania week.
Oh my God, it's next week. That's right.
Did you know?
Oh, I was actually taking next week off, I thought. Yes, WrestleMania week begins on Monday. So we're going to have lots of programming coming up on the site. Great time to jump on board at postwrestlingcafe.com, where we are going to have daily shows next week. We will be doing a show every day at noon, beginning on Thursday. John Cena will be joining me next Thursday. And we've also got some bonus shows expected to be making their way on the cafe next week. So you'll want to be keeping your feed refreshed on the cafe. And of course, we will be going live Saturday and Sunday night after both nights of WrestleMania. So honored that Wai Ting will break his own break by spending some time watching WrestleMania and then chatting about it with me on Sunday night.
I gotta be here for night 2. Of course.
The big night. Wai refused to do 2 nights of WrestleMania, so we got him for one big night, and that will be next weekend. But lots to look forward to from the whole staff at Post Wrestling. Tonight we are going to Baltimore, the Chesapeake Employers Insurance Arena, 3,018 according to WrestleTix, and we start off with the Death Riders reacting. And Jon Moxley calls this the best roster of pure talent. So why can't any of you get your act together when it counts? He's actually like just mocking these people that they can't beat him. They don't want it. They scorch the earth with anyone that tries to consider themselves a contender and then acknowledges the Young Bucks. They're back, but I am surrounded by warriors and we don't recognize them anymore. You don't understand the game anymore, and you better be careful before you make any moves. So we have this showdown between the Death Riders and the Young Bucks, with more to come there. And starting things off, it is a non-title bout between Jon Moxley and Katsuyori Shibata on the anniversary of Shibata's nearly career-ending injury with Kazuchika Okada at Sakura Genesis. And they start off, they are grappling, and then it's Shibata with a big wind-up slap. They're trading chops, boots, and then a baseball slide drop kick sends Moxley out. But the second gets caught with a clothesline. Moxley hits a pile driver, and Shibata just gets up to his feet, lands the PK before going down, clutching his head. And then Moxley locks in a choke after gouging the eyes, which would be a common occurrence of the Death Riders throughout this show. And the eye gouge leading to the choke, and Paul Turner waves it off at 5 minutes and 38 seconds.
I think in another time, this, maybe to some people, even today, would very well be a dream match. But given their difference in rank and perhaps maybe what are still some unknown limitations of what Shibata may or may not be allowed to do, this was really only presented as a strong showcase for Jon Moxley. But I feel like I saw enough here to know how beautifully their styles were able to match up. Both have a lot of shoot influence, obviously, very hard-hitting striking and very convincing looking grappling and submissions. So it definitely had my interest, but it almost felt like a bit of a tease of what I probably would have envisioned these two may have been able to provide in another time.
Yeah, in another non-WWE relationship, this could have been Bloodsport next weekend.
It could have, yeah, that's right.
So the Young Bucks come out. At least I could confirm this was Nick. There was also this extremely tanned individual next to him claiming to be Matt.
Well, Matt has, he started a YouTube channel with his wife, a travel YouTube channel, and clearly they've been going to some rather hot destinations because, he looks fresh off of the beach.
They just travel to different places?
Yeah. A travel vlog type of thing.
Okay. That's a tough channel to maintain when you've got kids and you're a traveling wrestler. I don't know how many beaches he's going to be seeing.
I mean, these days, I don't know how much traveling they're doing to the wrestling.
Yeah, that's true. But they are back now. Well, I have not seen any of these videos, but man's got a tan for sure. So they come out. Nick tells the audience to give it up for Moxley and to show some respect for the founding fathers of AEW. I could have sworn I was told that one man single-handedly launched this company. So I don't know what these two are claiming to have ownership of.
I guess depends on who you ask.
They explain why they did what they did at Dynasty. They did it for Hangman because he never wanted Swerve to be champion, and we don't forget who our friends are. We still love you, Hangman. And Matt calls for a peace offering to the Death Riders. They have no problems with them and realized while they were at home, we have more in common with them than we thought. We too want the locker room to rise up and we want to change the world. Moxley did what we couldn't. He took over AEW and won the heavyweight title. We didn't do that. Sunday was our pitch to them to join together. Think of what we could do together, and wants to discuss business. But a man who also wants to talk business is Kenny Omega, who wants to talk about animals business as well. He comes out and references the attack from last year. It's like, okay, we're just going to get everything out on the table to try and this was basically every loose end as we're moving forward with this story. You attacked me at the height of my diverticulitis, but I had already forgiven you. It's like, I wish we had known that. That's how a wrestling feud typically works. You forgive in private. I came back to AEW not for revenge, but for my legacy. And allow me to tell a brief story. And Kenny Omega goes to explain that he once had a friend in high school who had 2 Shih Tzu dogs. And these 2 Shih Tzus often shit on the floor. And this led to a chant of Dookie. I'm not exaggerating anywhere here. I didn't know where in God's name this was going. But after this very long story, he explained that after all of this Dookie piled up, he finally had to tell his friend, maybe we should go to my house instead. And that's you, the Young Bucks.
Yeah, they're the Shih Tzus.
Yes.
Shitting in a home. Yeah.
There was definitely a lot of shit to clean up over this last year. And then do you have anything to add about the Dookie?
No, not really. It was a bit of a strange promo. It got people to laugh. I don't know if that was Kenny's like prime intent here. Like, did he want to come out here to do a stand-up routine, or was he actually trying to make us laugh and also trying to make a point? I mean, no, it's not going to win promo of the year, but
no,
I mean, it was. I thought it was fine. Like, okay. I didn't hate it.
Well, then he brings up the shredding of the documents. It's like, oh yes, of course, the shredding of the documents. Yeah. We all know what you were doing. I was like, no, none of us know what he was doing. That was completely left open-ended. Please tell us. Right. Those were all the receipts for everything you had spent money on. You almost killed the company I gave my life and soul to. And after, he suggests, why not we just fight? So as he makes his way to the ring, out comes Okada, out comes Swerve, and Swerve comes through the crowd, and he's got a chair as Okada and the Bucks take off. So apparently they are back aligned together. And Omega gives a fist bump to Swerve before he leaves. And before we get to Swerve's promo, I just thought this was... They wanted to basically end all of this past stuff that we were maybe at one point going to pay off that we really have no desire to at this point. It was just, let's just start with a clean slate. But my God, could we have not been any less creative in how we did this? It just felt like, yeah, we set up all this stuff. We're not going any further. I did not enjoy this. I guess it's over, and that's
well, it. By we had set it up. What are you exactly referring to? The Kenny Bucks feud, or the documents, and what else? What are you talking about?
I mean, in this whole thing, he said both that he forgave the Bucks, but then he wants to fight the Bucks. So I didn't even know what the message was at the end of all of this.
I guess he forgave them for the diverticulitis attack, but does not forgive them for their ongoing sort of decision to get involved, possibly now with the Death Riders. So that wasn't really extinguished. The feud is still on. We could still say that Kenny's still in some form seeking revenge for the Bucks through their attack. The whole like tearing of the documents thing, I'm now at this point seeing this result. I'm pretty convinced that was only meant to be a sight gag, and I don't think it was ever supposed to be something we were supposed to look into. I thought it was.
So why even bring it up here?
Well, because there are people that are going to ask, like, what happened to the documents? Like, there are people that like you and I who would probably ask those things.
Okay.
Frankly,
Well,
I think it was a bad sight gag to just do, period, because wrestling fans are going to ask questions. I'm not saying any of that was good. I'm just saying I don't think this is extinguished. Clearly, they're leading to something involving Kenny and Swerve. It looks like maybe taking on this version of the Elite with Kazuchika Okada. I enjoyed the star power in this. Like, for the first time, I think, in quite a while, like, it feels like we're getting Kenny and the Bucks fully healthy and fully active. Now we're mixing in a Kazuchika Okada and a Swerve, so it feels like AEW has like a lot of big players that can interact with each other right now. I appreciated that. I hate the Bucks as these characters. When they came back, what added to, I think, my displeasure with the finish of Dynasty was not just the fact that it was a screwy finish, it was the fact that we were getting this version of the Bucks again, which, man, if there's something I dislike more than the Death Riders, and I think the audience dislikes more than the Death Riders, it's the EVP Young Bucks.
the Succession Bucks.
Oh man, and like, just getting the characters again on TV is, to me, like, more of a turnoff than something that would get me to turn on the TV. And just knowing that we're going to have to withstand this a little bit longer as we get to a potential Hangman and Swerve program with the two of them. I dislike that. I dislike the sort of like tone of their heel promos. They're never at all menacing. They do humor well. It's why I love BT so much. But when they're kind of doing it in this sort of like cartoonish villain type of way, I don't think it meshes well with like the likes of Swerve or Paige at all, who are like two of the more serious, characters that you've got. And Kenny's promo wasn't a great serious promo either, but because he's Kenny, like, that's not my main draw, when I'm watching him. So I didn't bother me as much.
Yeah, I just felt in the midst of, like, I'm listening to this Dookie promo. It's like the idea is like we're dangling like Omega with Hangman in this whole thing with the Bucks. I was like, this was one of the greatest matches in AEW history, and they are literally talking me out of interest in this whole thing with this. So by the end of it, I don't disagree that I feel like, yeah, they are not ending this with Kenny and the Bucks, and with Swerve and obviously Hangman attached to all of this by extension as well. Like, you are creating this whole dynamic, but and the Death Riders as well. Like, this Death Riders angle is just growing and growing now, and it's like this multi-pronged attack now.
Yeah, let's remember we're coming up to Anarchy in the Arena and Blood and Guts season, so what combination of all of these guys will make for some of those interactions?
Yeah, this very well could be that at Double or Nothing. So Swerve is left and declares it buck hunting season, and he's here with a loaded shotgun. Maybe that'll be the finish at Anarchy at the Arena.
A buckshot.
Have we had guns? We haven't had guns in AEW
yet. We've had like Arn Anderson, his threat of guns.
Threat, but not a physical firearm yet.
I guess not. We've yet to know whether or not Warner, TBS, TNT have that line.
I'm sure Darby would volunteer
to take a gunshot.
You never know.
Okay,
depends.
Sure.
Maybe at least with blanks. So then he gets jumped by Pac, and we come back from break, and they go right into their match. And this is when I realized, damn, wrong graphic. And Swerve sends him into the steps, and then he catches Pac and then kind of has him in a position like for a Styles clash, but elevates Pac and launches him for this buckle bomb. And the way Pac, the angle, you couldn't see the way that his foot came down, but this was clearly the spot that he's favoring his heel as soon as he goes down, and he's yelling out, and it was not your selling type of yell either. And he just rolls to the floor, and he cannot get up. Doc Samson is over there. Swerve is just staying like in character and just biding his time. He was actually a total pro here, and couldn't really just, hopefully he would be able to roll back in. He did, and instantly is hit with the super kick and Swerve stomp, and Swerve pins him in 416. Pac is just laying there. They cut away. And when we come back, he's just gotten out of there. So, I mean, this did not look good. There was no update throughout the night, and he did not come back for the closing angle, which was to set up a trios title match. So, I mean, man, this guy has been snake bit by a number of like injuries, visa issues, and hopefully this is not serious. But I mean, they obviously had to cut this short.
And like we spoke about with the Kevin Owens story, it's not a really super risky, dangerous move that causes a potential injury. Like in this case, it was just what seemed to be an awkward landing on his foot from a buckle bomb. Again, we've yet to receive the full details of
The
what
buckle
exactly
bomb
happened.
we've seen like between like Sting and Balor who have like taken it, but like this was like a landing on like the foot. Like this wasn't neck, this wasn't like shoulder or anything. Like
Yeah.
because one of the criticisms for the buckle bomb is that the person taking it, you don't know when you're bracing for the impact. But in this one, it just looks like it was just like a total fluke that his foot got tangled or twisted coming down, and that's what it feels like.
Yeah. So one of the things about professional wrestling that I don't know if like you could really prepare for so much, and knowing what a wrestler feels, I imagined he maybe wanted to tough out some of this match before realizing he really couldn't. I will say, like, I wonder if AEW, like, ultimately, there's not much you could prepare for something like this, but I do wonder if they could do better with their production, with some protocol in the event that something like this happens. You know, like there was a little bit of awkwardness, like between Pac and like the referee, I guess, almost checking on him, deciding whether or not he'd be able to go before they do the check. And the very uncomfortable moment where it almost feels like he's wooling himself in there back in the ring just to finish the story. When I really do wonder if like at some point, if you have any of these sort of awkward moments, we just decide to go to commercial. You know what I mean? Like cut to a video package, cut to break. And then maybe when we come back, like in a real sport, you get the official referee's decision. You know, so I just wonder if like an actual protocol for these sort of situations should be worked on and prepared for that much more for the future.
I mean, in a case like this as well, like the way it happened, like first of all, it's sometimes you're in this situation, the guy who's supposed to win is the one hurt, and that you kind of just have to think of something on the fly. In this one, like you could have just said, like it's a TKO finish, and look what Swerve was out for revenge, and he took out Pac. Like that could have just been your finish right there. It's like we just saw what happened, and Swerve finished him. He's the winner by TKO, and you don't have to have this guy on one leg having to literally hop his way into the ring to take another like a bump off a super kick and the finish. But
Yeah,
again,
that
like
sort of finish, honestly, it does nothing for anybody. Like it makes Swerve kind of look like a bully to just beat up a guy whose foot is already injured. It kind of like kills the immersion of professional wrestling when you know a guy is hurt and really can't wrestle and is just there to pretend that he can finish the match. So I'd much rather a TKO finish or just the referee calling it. You know, that to me feels a lot more realistic.
Ricochet is with Beast Mortos and crew, and tonight we have a 8-man tag with $400,000 going to the winner, to the winning team. And Ricochet declares himself the captain, and the others take issue with this designation. And then we go to a tunnel with Will Ospreay, Mark Briscoe, Speedball, and Kevin Knight, and they all go through what they're going to do with their $100,000. This was the best promo of the night. Mark Briscoe is going to diversify his portfolio, and Speedball Mike Bailey was going to buy shoes.
And Kevin Knight's
$100,000 shoes. That might have been those CM Punk sneakers we saw the other night.
Shoes. Well, he's due, I suppose, for a pair or two. Yeah, might be. Yeah, he could buy the CM Punk sneakers. Kevin Knight's going to Magic City, so I'm sure he'll have a great Monday night. This coming Monday.
Okay, well, that was great. They showed a video for the women's Owen Hart Cup and the updates. We're going to get more matches coming up on Collision that we'll go through. And they're also going to be doing Mercedes' second round match next week in Boston, which does make sense. But they're going to have, they've got a long time until Double or Nothing. And they're just like plowing through these tournaments. Like we're gonna have Mercedes potentially in the finals after next week, and we've got a month and a half till Double or Nothing.
Yeah, interesting.
Long build.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, beyond that, it's going to be a really long build to All In. So how are they going to fill that gap?
Well, that's face-to-faces, promo segments,
Sure.
and then lines that you're not cleared to be using on people. Renee is with Hangman Page. He doesn't know how to prepare for a wild card, but he's busy. He goes into Swerve's dressing room. Nana's there, and he says to Nana, "Let me make it clear, I wasn't trying to help Swerve." And Nana tells him, and he also warns him not make sure Swerve does not screw me in the Owen. And Nana says, "For the last year, I've wanted to tell you something, and I regret." And Page won't even let him get it out. He's not going to let him clear his conscience.
Yeah, I love
Some
that
psychological shit from Hangman.
Yeah.
I really liked it.
All of this continues to be very interesting. I think it's a great follow-up to the great scene that Paige and Swerve had last week. And I think the Paige character continues to be maybe the most interesting, like, serious character that AEW has. He, despite it being a babyface, clearly has some faults within him that he can't really shake. He, like you mentioned, John, it's like he doesn't want to give Nana the benefit of apologizing. And I think it continues to show, like, how driven Page is by the anger that's within him and how much he actually needs this anger that he has at Swerve to motivate him. So there's just something about him where he just can't let this feud end. And I really love the way that they've been telling the story so far, and I look forward to seeing how it continues to play out.
I really feel he's the most complex and fascinating character on this program consistently. The 8-man 400K match is next. This was like one of those on like the final night of Bola where they were a bunch of the participants who are eliminated. They just threw them into like your 8-man or 10-man tag. That's what this kind of match was. All these super combinations. Ospreay wants in with Lio Rush early, and pretty much every combo was just everyone going through their 30 seconds together, and the crowd loved this. Ricochet gets laid out by all four of the baby faces, and they all end up doing dives, including ending with a golden triangle by Bayley. And Ricochet is left in the ring. He does a somersault dive where he was just going to land on all four. They all step to the side, so he lands on his feet, and then all four of them just smack him on top of the head, and we go to break. During the break, this is where everyone caught their breath. They just beat down on Kevin Knight, and after Bayley misses the moonsault double knees, we see Knight reverse a powerbomb into a DDT onto Beast Mortos. Bayley then gets hit with a DVD by Ricochet, and then it's Bayley and Briscoe who both go for the crane kick. And Mortos eats an Os cutter. Knight gets the UFO splash, but the save is made, and Ospreay is left alone with Mortos, where he wins with the hidden blade. 12 minutes. I thought the highlight match of the whole show.
I agree. I love this. Otherwise, this would be a pretty like random like 8-person match, like maybe something that you would see on the undercard of a New Japan show. Just group a bunch of the baby faces together against a bunch of the heels. But the inclusion of a $400,000 winning prize attached to it.
Just so random.
But it's suddenly it's all the justification I need as somebody who appreciates storytelling.
Sure.
To tell me why these guys are bonded together to wrestle this match. Like I that's all I need to enjoy the wrestling that's in ring. And I thought they had a great 8-man tag. What a great combination of like wrestlers that many of them new this year to AEW, like in Kevin Knight, Speedball, Ospreay. All three of them have just injected so much sort of like new energy, in particular with this sort of style of match. So I think Crew actually looked really great here as well. Yeah. So those guys are, I think, doing really well. Beast Mortos continues to shine in like a really odd way in that he seems to fit anywhere, like as the sort of like piece of the like whatever faction that you want to throw him into. And Ricochet like really has felt he actually does feel like a leader of a faction at this point.
everyone got like their shine in this match, and continually, I think like Speedball and Kevin Knight, it just feels like they have really integrated them so well in a very short amount of time. I hope they should seriously do some vignettes with some of the winners. Like, I want to see Kevin Knight at Magic World. I want to see Bailey go sneaker shopping, and I want like an Intuit Tax Turbo segment with Mark Briscoe investing his $100,000 or doing his taxes.
Yeah, I want stock tips from Mark Briscoe because, you know, I'm sure many of us would need it right now. So, yes. How is he navigating the current potential recession?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how Delaware is coping. The chicken farmers, their farmers are going to be feeling this one.
He saves a ton on groceries already by growing his own chicken.
That is true. The price of eggs not affecting Mark Briscoe potentially. There's a recap of FTR's attack on Cope. None of the three were on the show. Hurt Syndicate come out and they go to toast their title defense when MJF is out, and he just stands alongside of the Hurt Syndicate, assuming that his assisting them on Sunday has led to his inclusion. Well, MJF, who may or may not have listened to my complaints last week, said, you know, Tony Khan wanted me in the Owen Hart Cup, but I'm not going to sweat my balls off entering that tournament when I can join the Hurt Syndicate, cut the line, and get my title back.
It's the same excuse he gave the last time there was a title opportunity that he happened to not. I think it was it a gauntlet or something? It was something like that. Anyway, so
was
MJF,
it was he? Yeah, I can't remember the term.
He was missing, and then like a bunch of internet nerds were asking, "Oh, what?" Like he anticipates, because I think he himself is an internet nerd, you know. So he anticipates people saying, "Well, where was MJF in all of this?" And obviously he has a very valid excuse for not entering these things. Yeah,
he doesn't want to sweat his balls off. Noted. He says that he takes credit for them retaining at Dynasty before Lashley tells him to shut up. You didn't get the job done, and we don't need you. And they get into an argument. MVP takes it to a vote where it has to be a unanimous vote. And MVP puts his thumbs up. Benjamin does a thumbs in the middle. I thought he was going to abstain, but then he puts his thumbs down. Lashley is so happy. This was the most joy I've ever heard come out of Bobby Lashley. He really emoted this, and he leaves with Shelton, and MJF is left frustrated that he has not been indoctrinated into the Hurt Syndicate. Not this week.
No, not this week. But you know, the way that they're pacing this, I mean, I wonder if like All In could be the ultimate destination for whatever this story is supposed to be. I'm really liking the pace of it so far. I think they've kind of set up for you know, the at least immediate chapters with each person eventually giving him the thumbs up. And Shelton, despite the thumbs down this week, later kind of lets on that maybe he could be turned via comedy. You know,
it could be a thing where if you are leading to this, like, I think obviously everyone's watching this with the idea MJF gets in, and then there's eventually going to be the turn. But I think the key is you want to establish it. So when you do the turn, it's effective. And having that thumbs up as their little go-to thing.
Great.
I mean, I know it's like a total rip of like Evolution and such, but when you finally do the thumbs
Evolution
down,
were not the first people to do a thumbs up, thumbs
but
down,
for a wrestling angle,
yes, you're right.
For a heel turn, it's very synonymous.
Yeah.
But there you have it.
MJF, I mean, the dynamic here feels okay. If we're gonna use another wrestling comparison, Sami Zayn and the Bloodline, you know, like a guy who clearly does not look like the others, joining in and trying to fit in, and haha, right? MJF.
Could you imagine Big Larry joining the Hurt Syndicate?
Who's Big Larry? Oh,
Sami Zayn's alter ego. Was that his name?
Big Larry?
Haven't you seen this was his character on the Indies when he thought he was black?
I'm not aware of this. Wow.
Oh, you have to have seen this.
Really? Wow.
Okay, never mind. I'll send you some promos.
I got some work to do in my weeks off, clearly. But like MJF is, even in this short glimpse, he's becoming so entertaining that I think he's like, the crowd were chanting, he's our scumbag again. So he's kind of become a big baby face again, almost as a result of just this little interaction that we've seen. And I think that'll continue to ramp things up. So we compare maybe like the post Cole MJF careers of both MJF and Adam Cole. Adam Cole, I think, still has some work to do to kind of move on from that, but MJF, I think, has clearly been able to move on like pretty well.
Next segment, we go to Renee, who is with Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford. And Ford pretty much does the whole promo here. Like, she does now really feel like she is the mouthpiece for Megan Bayne, beyond just being sort of in her corner, and states Storm barely survived and it's just going to get worse for her. The division cannot move on, and she is going to be at Collision on Saturday. And Bayne says that she will make you bow down. So it did sound like they are going to try to extend another match out of these two before the Owen Hart Cup concludes.
Interesting. Okay, because if it is, I just wonder how you book it. You know, do you have actually, like, would you have Bayne win this one? You know, and that would totally throw a wrench into the Owen outcome, I suppose. But I could actually see that. You know, let's say, like, okay, especially after tonight, we're kind of jumping ahead, but let's say Jamie Hayter wins the tournament.
Who I could very well see winning this whole thing.
Couldn't. It, like, seems to make a bit more natural sense to have Hayter go after a Megan Bayne as champion rather than, you know, some like Toni Storm, right?
Yeah,
Statlander.
I think for the big show, I think they do want to have Toni Storm in that.
You'll
that
still
big
have a
title
Toni
match.
Storm match. You just happen to have, it's kind of like Gunther and Jay, right? You know, it doesn't have to be the match, but it's a title match nonetheless.
Titleless Toni Storm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, Kris Statlander and Thunder Rosa were next in the opening round of the tournament, with Toni Storm on commentary, talking about her big package that she used to defeat Megan Bayne on Sunday. Thunder Rosa, it's a sliding drop kick. They go to the floor. Taz started singing the Bee Gees during the commercial break. No one joined in with him.
More than a woman. Yeah.
Yes. And then Toni Storm looks into the camera and gave a PSA, do try this at home. And boy, did Excalibur just quickly correct and say, no, don't. Blue Thunder Bomb is hit by Kris Statlander. Then Thunder Rosa hits a destroyer, Shining Wizard. She can't keep Kris Statlander down as she gets frustrated. And then out of nowhere, it's a clothesline Wednesday Night Fever by Statlander, who pins Thunder Rosa in 9:38 as Storm applauds. And then Kris helps Thunder Rosa up. Thunder Rosa is frustrated as she leaves the ring, and Kris Statlander will face either Jamie Hayter or Billy Starks. So she will face Jamie Hayter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I definitely got this wrong. I thought, like, Thunder Rosa, just given Thunder Tits and Texas, like, I thought she'd actually be one of the picks to win this tournament, but out in the first round, again, like with the scenario that we're kind of playing out, if we do get that Megan Bayne rematch, it doesn't necessarily rule out Thunder Tits not exploding at All In. You know, still a possible destination, but maybe a bit less likely now.
Don Callis is with Kyle Fletcher and Konosuke Takeshita and predicts that the two of them are going to meet in the finals of the Owen Hart Cup after Fletcher's win and Takeshita set to take on Brody King. He calls them jacked, oiled up, hot, and what I hope are their new team name, very healthy young men. He says that due to all of these injuries, the Callis family is now accepting new members. So we know that Brian Cage had been hurt, and it sounds like Lance Archer is also hurt based on this.
He's hurt?
I don't know. They weren't here. Look at that. What a frame.
Well, could it just be like one tag team partner's out,
the other's out?
other one's out?
Maybe.
I don't know. Maybe.
Well, he encourages people to send their 8x10s and their bank account numbers. So they're adding members to the Don Callis family.
Yeah, maybe just on this topic of conversation, we should add that they have been teasing these Don Callis lookalikes in the crowd. They did it on Sunday. They did one again today. So there seems to be some sort of setup of potentially introducing a new member like that somehow. Like
Twins?
a bunch of Callis.
Okay.
Callis twins?
The Callis twins. I don't know.
Yeah, you're just now making me think of Ron and Don Harris coming out dressed up as Don Callis.
Well, I hope they're not coming in.
Yeah, I hope not either.
Adam Cole is with the Undisputed Kingdom after winning the TNT title. They are the elite of the elite. Roderick says, now it's time for me and Kyle to have our moment. Cole calls the last 2 years the most challenging of his life, but this is just the start for them. It's a new era in AEW, and we are the Paragon.
This almost seemed to indicate that they've got a new name.
Maybe there's a dispute over their name, and they're going to rebrand themselves. The Paragon.
So they could no longer use Undisputed or Kingdom? Because the Kingdom is the part of the equation.
Well, they still called themselves the Undisputed Kingdom in this promo, but they were clearly emphasizing this Paragon at the.
We are so they're both. They're the undisputed Paragon Kingdom.
Well, all I know is that if I were to ask ChatGPT, give me the most bland name for a wrestling group, the Paragon would be top 5.
Paragon, Pinnacle, the Culling. You like that one?
Yeah.
Dark State.
Dark State. One word, by the way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Next was TV time with Chris Jericho. He talks about losing the match, losing his tooth, and losing the title. That's a rough pay-per-view. But he congratulates Bandito, who only won due to his intrusive family members and stooge of a mother. But I too have a family, and he calls out Big Bill and Brian Keith. He tells the two he was hoping they would win the tag titles, but you didn't. And Bill cuts off Jericho, stating, I know you've been angry, and I've been getting angry. I've been getting angry a lot lately. I respected you, Chris. That's why I joined this group, but I did not sign up to be a punching bag. And I will leave if you're just going to berate us for not winning the tag belts. And Brian Keith feels the exact same way. Jericho looks at Keith, asks about both of them, and says, I handpicked you two. You're future world champions, both of you. And says, I needed you, Bill, on Sunday. You weren't there. Some might say it's your fault that I lost. But I'm not saying that. And I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed. And he takes this bat and he smashes the TV in the ring. And he just repeats, I'm not angry. I'm disappointed. Ending with, I'm fucking disappointed in you. And until you change that, I think it's best that I leave. And this crowd, they all sang goodbye. They were wishing him well. And then Jericho left in the back after destroying more shit backstage. And it looks like Jericho is off for some time.
Right. Yeah, I had wondered if they would actually execute the turn, or at least have one of the two members leave the group. And it seems like we're just delaying things right now. Don't know if like the tone of this one hit as intended. I feel like Jericho was going for like a very serious performance, and in the end it kind of felt more comical to me. Like him just kind of running around backstage smashing like random like trays and stuff, like didn't really come across as like, I don't know, intimidating or what.
My bigger thing was just for such a big promo for Big Bill, it was just so clearly I have remembered what I am going to say in every order that my words are coming out. It was just, there was no emotion behind this serious promo. And it just reeked of like, this guy's memorized.
So I totally noted that myself. I thought it was so stiff, but I also it almost made me wonder if he was purposely trying to act badly. And in pro wrestling, it's kind of hard to, they could be doing all of this to swerve us, right? To trick somebody, perhaps. I don't think that's the case. I think in wrestling, you often just get bad acting. He's cut good promos in the past, but
he has. For such a big promo that he had here, it just felt so mechanical and like stunningly so.
Yeah, I'm almost disappointed we're not going to get like an actual decision, and that we kind of have to see this through to some later conclusion.
I mean, if it wasn't for the Hurt Syndicate, I would suggest like while Jericho is away, these two should win the tag belts. But you're just coming off this match, and I don't see
hot enough to beat the Hurt Syndicate.
They're not
at all.
But I could absolutely see Big Bill winning some title while Jericho's gone, and that's Jericho's program when he comes back. Is you finally get to these two at some point. Like I don't know how much more you can go with this as the group. Like it does feel like.
Who would you have Big Bill beat? Like who is
one of the 15 champions?
So it's not going to be Okada. It's not going to be Kenny. I don't even. It shouldn't be Cole. Cole just won the thing.
Maybe it's Bandito. Maybe he beats Bandito.
I mean, then we're just back to like square one here. Like, what Jericho going for his 10th ROH championship? Like, isn't Bandito the project here? I don't think Big Bill has.
Well, then
come across...
at the very least, these guys should go on a win streak. Like they are succeeding without Jericho. That should be the idea.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Sure.
We don't need a belt thrown in there. Okay, I'll give you that.
Mm-hmm.
For Collision on Saturday, we have Anthony Bowens, the 5-tool player, against Blake Christian. Brody King against Takeshita in the Owen Hart Cup. Jamie Hayter against Billy Starks in the Owen Hart Cup. And Athena against Harley Cameron, with the winner facing Mercedes next week. So we could get Mercedes and Athena on 4 days' notice. But in Boston next week.
Yeah. The breakthrough show.
Yes, the spring breakthrough show.
Yeah.
Also, FTR will speak on the show. Yes. So I look forward to a Dax soliloquy. And then we had Alicia Atut in the back with the Hurt Syndicate. And Lashley explains how he doesn't like MJF. We don't need him, Shelton notes. But little George Costanza is kind of funny. And man, Lashley pops again for Shelton Benjamin. I mean, Lashley thought this was like the funniest joke.
I don't see George Costanza at all in MJF. Do you? Do you?
No. They're from New York.
Yeah, he's more of a...
Maybe if he didn't get those hair transplants, maybe he was going in the
I was going to say his hair is more Kramer than anyone.
Well, then we had MJF enter, and he looks at Alicia and says, "To get your skank ass out of here." And there goes Alicia. And
no way to treat a significant other.
Yes. He says to to MVP that he's being treated like he's just some punk ass bitch. MVP says, they know exactly who you are, MJF. Your reputation precedes you. And in business, you find out what the consumer wants and you give it to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically like telling him to find ways to convince the others by giving them what they desire. So each week will be his attempt to win over a member of the Hurt Syndicate. So what does Shelton truly want? What does Bobby Lashley truly want? These are the questions that MJF needs to be asking.
And then the main event was Claudio and Wheeler Yuta against Samoa Joe and Hook. So Hook is in. He hits some rolling Germans to Yuta. And then Claudio catches Hook with a stomp on the chest. And they beat down on Hook forever. They were in control throughout the whole break. Hook finally hits a suplex, but they knock Joe off the apron. So Hook, when he manages to get there after several suplexes, Joe is not there. Joe fights Claudio on the ground. And they hit this powerbomb combo. Hook barely kicks out of this. And Joe hits a Uranagi on the floor to Claudio. Moxley is out, distracting Bryce. So Yuta now gouges the eyes of Hook, just like Moxley did in the opener. When Shibata runs down, applying a choke to Moxley. And meanwhile, there's a red rum applied to Yuta. And Claudio is caught in the coquina clutch on the floor. So with 3 submissions applied, Hook taps out, or well, at least submits Yuta and gets the win for his team. You would have to imagine that Pac was probably figured into this whole post-match because afterwards, I thought personally for the match, there was nothing wrong with the match, but there was certainly nothing great about it either. It just, to me, felt like a pretty unsatisfying main event for the show. It was more so this was on last to do the angle at the end and the title challenge.
The way they structured it, I almost wondered if something got cut out because it was just Hook taking
Joe never got the big hot tag. It was
like Hook like getting beaten down all throughout commercial break, and we come back and Hook ends up winning. So in that sense, it actually felt like a bit of a novel way to book a match because you're expecting the hot tag from Joe, and instead Hook just kind of wins the match for himself. But I also do wonder if that was just due to a limitation of time. But it didn't jump out at me in much any sort of way. But I did think it was strong booking for the Ops, who are one of the few to get one over on the Death Riders, especially with the way this segment ended.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the post match here. So Marina comes in and she nails Joe in the knee with the chair. Yuta and Claudio, meanwhile, attack Hook. While Shibata comes in, he gets knocked out. And they set up an unfolded chair with the two legs facing upward. And Claudio delivers the neutralizer to Hook. So this man may have just been impaled on live television. Taz is just, son of a bitch. It's like Taz has such a... the man's a pro. It's like, you know what? He's his own man. He might be murdered, but he's his own man. So Joe chases them away, and he is seething. And Joe gets on the mic and calls them cowardly sons of bitches. You call yourselves Death Riders? You're more like Dick Riders. And man, this crowd thought that this was the most clever put down ever created. Dick Riders. And then, by the end of this segment, Hook is on his feet with Samoa Joe, who on Hook's behalf is issuing a challenge for the trios titles. I was like, this was just such a waste of an injury angle. Like, the guy was on his feet. We're going for the belts. And we also have, like, the glaring issue now that, like, is Pac even going to be okay for this? Which, I guess, worst case scenario, you could have Moxley sub in. You could always go that route. But, yeah, they... this was booked fine to set up your challengers for the trios belts, but I mean, just given like the extent of like this neutralizer on this chair, I would have saved it for something a little more meaningful to like take Hook out of action. And instead he was like standing tall with Joe by the end of this. It was like he was down for 2 minutes.
Yeah. I can understand the motivation of like every one of the things that they did, but I also understand what you just said, John, because it's almost like the spot was too good to just do. At the same time, like a normal neutralizer obviously wouldn't have been enough,
Neutralizer on a normal chair, just a folded chair.
Okay,
that's bad, but that's not going to impale the guy.
The difference for you between whether or not this segment was worthy of criticism or not is whether or not the chair was unfolded.
I just didn't know why we couldn't have just done a basic like laid out spot. It's like
what's a basic layout spot to you?
I think they could have just done a neutralizer if the guy was going to be standing and laying out a challenge by the end. Why did we, like
that's not enough to be memorable. It's not enough to like gain.
This was not supposed to be memorable. Like we're supposed to forget about this by the end.
No, you needed something for Joe to be that pissed off about to heat up the feud. So
they laid them all out at the end. Gets up, cuts his promo.
Yeah, but he did that to his friend, okay? He went beyond a regular laying out. He unfolded the chair over the neutralizer.
Obviously didn't go beyond enough.
But I also understand why they needed to book the ops with their hands held high, because you need to be establishing them. You need to, the point of the segment is to make them look good, like they're capable opponents for the Death Riders. So everybody tried to they tried to make everybody look good, basically, and maybe by the end that wasn't as perfect as it could have been. But I personally, it worked for me. I thought by the end of the segment, they established the ops as worthy challengers for the Death Riders.
Yeah. I assume Moxley would have been part of this anyway, and it just would have been a 4-on-3 deal.
Yeah, I definitely noticed like having Shibata choke Moxley out like that, and I understand Moxley did the same to him earlier in the night, but still, like I wouldn't expect like your champion and somebody as protected as Moxley to just like be in that visual. So I wondered if like Pac might have been in that spot instead. Don't know.
I just think it tied into the opening match that it made more sense for Moxley to be the one choked out. But I mean, regardless, you would have assumed Pac would have been part of this. And I guess that's the question coming out of tonight is the extent of Pac's injury and if he'll be ready to go for whenever they want to do this trios title match. And if they just have to mix things up and Moxley has to do the trios match.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So there you go. That was Dynamite following Dynasty. How did they do for a follow-up show? There was a lot thrown on to this episode in terms of their post-Dynasty storylines.
I thought it was a fine show. Yeah. I'm kind of surprised, but I really liked the $400,000 8-man tag. Like just as a match, that nucleus of guys that they have both on the heel and the babyface side feels so fresh right now. I'm continuing to enjoy what they're doing with Paige. We didn't get to see a ton of it on the show, but what little I did see, I'm really enjoying. Swerve continues to come across really well. Not as high up on the Bucks, but I understand why they need to be involved in order to really kind of like build to a potential Paige and Swerve team up, for instance. So I thought it was a fine edition of Dynamite. How about you?
Yeah, I had some of my issues with like the some of the angles on the show, but the 8-man was exceptionally strong. I thought that was the high point of the show, in ring or promo wise. Very strong stuff.
I'm sure Swerve and Pac would have been awesome if not for the injury. So I'm sure we'll get an update.
Yeah, it does make you wonder what got extended as a result of that and how they dealt with that. Because they went 4 minutes. You would have assumed that match would have gone significantly longer.
And this show still ended at what, like 10:07?
Oh yeah, they did like the 8-minute overrun. Like they still went the regular time. All right, well, there you go, everyone. Those are our thoughts on Dynamite. We're going to say goodbye to everyone on the YouTube channel. I will be back on Friday night here after SmackDown with the great Neil Flanagan. But Wai is going to stick around a little longer for all of the Post Wrestling Cafe members. Go XL at postwrestlingcafe.com because now we're getting into your feedback and we're going to be chatting about Dark Side of the Ring on Big Van Vader. Wai, let's go to forum.postwrestling.com. And
I'm reading reports now that apparently the Paragon is their new name of the faction here. I'm reading on Fightful here. The Paragon, AEW filed to trademark the term Paragon back in January 2022. So,
so they've been waiting 3 years to do this.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. It's as simple as this.
Sure.
I'm guessing they can't call them simply Undisputed because NXT, and the Kingdom, they're not really the Kingdom anymore. Okay. So it's the Paragon now.
I will give no thought to what the team's name is at all. I mean, we have a group called the Ops. I think everything is fair game to go for. All right, we're going to start off with Andrew from Cape Breton. This show flowed really well with the starting match going into the next angle and into the next match. Something seemed off with Kenny's promo, though, I'll say. Don't you like your Dookie theme promos? It felt like he wanted to be goofy, Kenny, but it was in a typical back and forth style promo that just did not fit. Then 2 kids in a large overcoat that looked like Kazuchika Okada came out. I'm guessing this is the blood and guts direction with Kenny, Swerve, Hangman, and a 4th against the Elite. I could see more anarchy in the arena, which sounds like more so in the immediate. But anyway, probably some 8-man scenario. The highlight of the show was the 8-man tag that seemed like a house show style tag. I'm usually not into money stipulations as I find them unrealistic, but Mark Briscoe sold it for me. It's also good to see the Death Riders House of Torture shenanigans fail, and I'm guessing this leads to Mox against Joe at the pay-per-view. Overall, it was an enjoyable show.
I guess I'd like to ask, why, Andrew, why money stipulation would feel unrealistic?
I don't know. He didn't specify why. I mean, they definitely are good for it with this $185 million deal.
I guess the question is why these 8 in particular would be chosen to be given this opportunity.
I mean, Top Flight and AR Fox won what, $300,000 a few years ago?
That was a battle royal.
Yeah. So,
well, Tony has a lot of money. Maybe sometimes he just likes to dangle it.
$400,000 is a very realistic purse to give out. This is like the fight of the night and the performance bonuses all being handed out in one match.
Oh, so fight of the night is usually how much? 100?
50 and 50, so 100. Well, it's actually less. So yeah, they give out typically $300,000 for each. Am I doing this right? 100. It's 50 and 50 for the fight of the night, and then 50. They give out $200,000.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Tony being a bit more generous in kayfabe. Okay.
Yeah. Well.
And Dana. Let's go to Dan. Dan from Winnipeg. Enjoyed the show. Always like the show after the pay-per-view since it feels like we'll get some fresh new story beats, and we did. Unfortunate Pac injury. Poor guy can't catch a break. Swerve, well, we will wait the injury report to see. Swerve talking to the camera on the entrance ramp, mentioning that he's ready for Blood and Guts. So is this an official confirmation that is where this is headed for Double or Nothing? I guess probably. 8-Man was a ton of fun. Enjoyed the women's match.
I think what he was referring to was last year's Blood and Guts when he was involved with the Young Bucks. I think that was the mention of Blood and Guts, not so much calling it out for coming up here. At least that's how I took it.
What happened last year?
I'd have to look up the match, but it involved Swerve and Hangman on opposite sides.
Okay.
So you had the Bucks in there too.
The fact that he even brought that up kind of signals to me that he might be looking forward to meet them in that match again.
Yeah,
but...
he did bring it up. So, and I mean, they typically do Blood and Guts, what, like end of June, roughly in that vicinity.
He also says 8-Man was a ton of fun. Enjoyed the women's match, and I really enjoyed the finish of the main event. I thought it was a good visual. Enjoying the mic single-handedly got me hyped up for an Ops Trios run. I really enjoyed the Ask Away show this week. Appreciate the insight on how you two got introduced to non-mainstream wrestling. I had never heard of the service Way mentioned, but Kazaa was definitely something I used. Finding collections of clips of Misawa Kawada, exploding pool death matches, and the juniors of New Japan was simultaneously incredible and absolute mind F.
Yeah, I mean, it takes you back to a time when you think you're downloading a snuff film when it comes to deathmatch wrestling in Japan.
I had to wait sometimes a day, maybe even days, if my connection wasn't so great in order to watch one match. So
yeah,
it's still way
sometimes
faster
your download would get interrupted after you've waited hours.
The worst. And then you find out it was mislabeled to begin with, and it wasn't the match you were actually looking for.
It was just a fake file you downloaded and it's just static.
Yeah. It's still way faster than actual tape trading. But these days you just type in a name and it's on YouTube. Now, 20 to 30 years from now, people will be complaining about I had to type the name in to YouTube and I had to press the button in order to play. Now I can just envision it in my mind and I've already seen the match in 30x speed,
Yeah, you just get augmented reality and the people are right in front of you and they redo the match.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, last one is Brian from New Jersey. Tonight's Dynamite started the right way, addressing questions from the end of Dynasty. I'm interested to see where Swerve, Hangman, and the Bucks go between now and whenever Blood and Guts happens. Very fun 8-man tag with a load of money on the line. And I'm glad Mike Bailey and Kevin Knight continue to have spotlights. Had this match happened a few days earlier, Mark Briscoe could have taken advantage of the down market to diversify his portfolio better. But things looked like they were treading upwards again earlier today. I'm also glad the ops are moving up.
He just needs to give it a week, if not 90 days. And
yeah, folks, the economy is not roaring back.
Yeah.
But maybe look at geographic diversification. I'm also glad the ops are moving up beyond squash matches and going after the trios belts, but the injury to Pac early in the show is unfortunate. If he can't go, presumably Moxley could pinch hit for him. I love Tony Storm on commentary. He's also got a piece here on Dark Side of the Ring. Let's try and remember, and we'll read this at the end because that is next. Let's just spend a couple of minutes on Dark Side of the Ring on Vader. So Vader had died back in 2018, and it was a few years ago that they inducted Vader into the WWE Hall of Fame after he had I think they had inducted him after he had passed away, because I remember
2022.
Right. Okay. Because he did do a induction. I believe it was for when they put Stan Hansen in Dallas. I think that was 2016.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Anyway, so this episode, I thought that it was mainly noteworthy for the fact that they had his son, Jesse White, who had actually been in WWE developmental at a point in time, and his ex-wife, Deborah, who was also interviewed. They are relied upon pretty heavily in this episode, especially for the final years, where it seemed like Jesse was pretty much a caretaker for his father. Like it was pretty heart-wrenching at the end when you're just hearing about this, this big larger than life figure that this guy had as a father, and who was just reduced to being, bedridden after the effects of a coma that he had been in, and, passing away kind of unexpectedly right after Father's Day in June of 2018 that he recounts. But other people interviewed from the wrestling side were Mick Foley, Jim Ross, who, what are we, like 3 for 3? Jim Ross has been in like every episode so far.
Foley, Borga, and Vader, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Jim Cornette. They got Stan Hansen in this one. It was like well into the episode. I was like, wow, they got Stan Hansen here, which is one of Vader's more famous matches because of the eye popping out. They got Nick Patrick, Gerald Briscoe, and dude, the total out of left field dark side pull. They found Joe Thurmond, who was the jobber that got nearly was temporarily paralyzed from a power bomb by Vader. I was stunned that they found this guy, who is pretty much I cannot recall this guy ever doing anything. But I always have known the name Joe Thurmond because of this one injury that he had. But tell me a little bit about what you felt about the episode, the good and the bad.
Yeah, this was an episode where, I mean, obviously I was familiar with the subject, but I wasn't as maybe familiar with the controversies attached, and therefore I didn't really know what to expect out of it. And you watch it, and I don't know if there was exactly controversy to be found, but more so just, I think, a tragic early end, and maybe a tragic loss of potential superstardom for somebody who at one time was a big star. So I thought they like always, I thought they did a really good job of showing us the human element behind the major character in telling us, through the family's perspectives, what this type of person was, what he might what maybe stood out to me by the end was how sensitive this person seemed, and how fragile his confidence might have been. I remember, John, sometimes you and I go through this period of reviewing a WWE event from 97, 96, and we would often ask, well, what happened to Vader? Why didn't he stick around for the Attitude Era? He'd be one of those names that we'd be asking about. And I think this show kind of does a pretty good job of answering that.
Yeah, I think your perspective of Vader really would be indicative of when you first were introduced to him, because here was someone that comes in and he's got this whole athletic football background, got injured, and then comes in and he started out in just working his way up on in Denver, and then it's the creation of this Big Van Vader character in New Japan where he gets to beat Inoki in immediately. This led to a riot at Sumo Hall. This was the last show of the year in December, and they came in and it was just a total shocking outcome that Inoki would lose so quickly to establish this new heel presence, that you're watching this and you're thinking, this is going to be the next massive Japanese foreign star. And probably he could have just stayed in Japan, but it eventually, and it was paying so well during the 90s for him that he was able, as WCW champion, to still do to headline Jingu Stadium with Keiji Muto and do both. And here is someone that, he becomes a champion in Catch, in Austria, in New Japan, and WCW. And you're just thinking the early 90s, that's when I first saw Vader, was 92, 93 in WCW. And just thinking this is whether it was just the name comparison for me, I was this is Darth Vader. He is the ultimate villain in WCW. This guy can do moonsaults. I was just enamored with this guy when I first saw him. And so I was watching WCW in and out, but I didn't really have a consistency in the early 90s of just having access to WCW. But when he came to WWF, he comes in at the Rumble, and it's that angle that they show on the episode with Gorilla Monsoon. I was this, I thought that was just the most incredible angle. I was the WWF, you always wonder about, okay, the WCW product coming over. You would think that first night, they totally see the value in this guy, and this guy's going to be your big top heel star. And the WWF run, it's really indicative of a guy that's just, a perfect case study of someone whose confidence appeared to be beaten out of him throughout the booking. And it reflected, he lost his motivation, he put on weight, and it culminates in what was kind of comedic at the time for just this awful promo, but one in which when you hear it here, this was pretty much Vince's opinion of him, and they script him on television after losing to Cain. I'm just a big fat piece of shit. And for a lot of people, that's their and that's a promo that does reside in people's memories of Vader and kind of your last image of Vader in the company. He does come back after that, but that's the last kind of endearing memory. And my only thought on the episode was just, it's almost positioned like he flamed out of WWF, and they mention it like he did have a resurgence in Japan, but like he went to Japan and he totally resurrected his career for several years in All Japan and even to a degree in Noah. Like he was phased down and teaming with Scorpio, but especially in 99, he goes over there, he wins the Triple Crown, and it just tells you like what a different environment meant, because he was the Vader of old for a period of time there after WWF. Like he did not end his career. He definitely, faded down physically, but that 99 was a signal that WWF, it was just a terrible environment for him.
Yeah. I didn't really know much about his relationship with McMahon or McMahon's opinion of him, and to hear, I guess, from the people that were close to Vader and also to Vince at this time talking about that particular relationship, about how Vince basically lost interest in him and
never watched him either. Like they just say like Vince doesn't watch anything beyond his own product. So Vader meant nothing to him coming in. It was like Jim Ross and Jim Cornette. Number one, they were the ones that, when they saw the Hansen match in 1990 with the Eye, like they really wanted to go after Vader. And it was several years before Vader would come in full time to WCW because it was just so lucrative in Japan. But then they're also now in power in WWF. So they're in Vince McMahon's era as well. And that's not too far removed from when they're bringing in Mick Foley. So it's these interesting examples of past WCW talent. You could throw Austin in the mix there too, that coming into WWF, there was no guarantee if they were going to succeed. And, they touch on too, like him and Shawn were kind of oil and water, and Michaels just had no time for this guy. And that was, the wrong political enemy to have in 1996 in the WWF.
Yeah, Cornette points to the match they had at SummerSlam 96, and how Shawn, upon telling Vader to move away from an elbow drop, and Vader must, not, I guess, moving away because either he didn't hear it or something, Shawn instead decides to land on his feet and then kick Vader in the head while screaming so everybody could hear, "I said move." And Cornette, continues to be one of the highlights of these shows.
Certainly, he cut a great promo here on Shawn.
Cuts a great promo on Shawn, calling him just an unprofessional. So, another great example of, I think, like the factors that, it's interesting because you look at this guy and you think, who could bully this guy? What confidence issues could a man who looks like this, Vader, what confidence issues could this guy have? And from this, you could understand it a little bit better, how he would be mentally struggling with a lot of these issues, dealing with Shawn Michaels, who very much had Vince McMahon's ear, threatening to get him fired. The struggles with weight, the struggles with pain pills, that were discussed here as well.
Yeah, I mean, they talk about that. He heavily got into painkiller usage later, is drinking a lot. And that it's a sad story that you see of some of ones that suddenly you've been an athlete all your life and there's a time limit on that. And here was someone that just you've dedicated so much of your life towards athletics and sports and wrestling. And what's the next 25 years of your life going to look like? And for some of these people, like, they don't have that answer and they hold on to wrestling, and it's indie dates, and it's just, and unfortunately it's, relying on, alcohol and other vices. And it's just very, very sad that you are not equipped for kind of that post wrestling career. And I mean, it's his ex-wife. I mean, it's tough not to read between the lines here of,
she was,
their
I think,
relationship.
Very clear. Yeah.
And, the fact that she's saying, like, things could have been a lot worse. Like, it could have ended up where I'm dead and he's in prison. Like, it's
so I'm paraphrasing, but some of the verbiage she uses is, I don't want to misword it, but something about how he would never mm, he would never take things out on our child, but he would on me. Like she did not explicitly state like how, but basically said one of the lines, the memorable lines from the episode was, he loved me till death did us part. Till he loved me to death, but he also loved me to death. Like that was the issue. So yeah, I think she was very clear about like the domestic violence that might have existed.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, it's, it does paint a picture of somebody that just had a lot of personal issues that unfortunately never seemed to, well, they were ones that didn't appear rectified, ended up divorced later in his life, and then it's all the health problems. He finds out he had been diabetic for a long time, but never informed his family, and ends up in a diabetic coma, according to his son. And then he has congestive heart failure. And after a quadruple bypass surgery, he went through a bout of pneumonia and ended up in a coma. And when he woke up, he was not the same. And this is the last years of his life where his son is taking care of him, having to feed his father, and then passing away June 18th, 2018, when he was 63. But yeah, he was, I only had one like series of interactions with Leon White, and it was we were lining up an interview with him that Dan Lavransky was going to do, and it was just this. It was interesting just to hear him. He was just very concerned that he was going to record this interview and that somehow we wouldn't air it. And he was adamant. He wanted to speak to me, and he's like, I want to be alerted when this airs. You're going to air this, right? And it was like these follow-ups. I had to contact him to make sure like it aired. I was like, I will promise you that if you give us 45 minutes of your time, this interview is going to air. We are not looking for a one-on-one phone call for 45 minutes. I promise you we will air this. And it was just,
he must have been burnt by somebody.
Maybe. I'm sure that you've had lots of different weird interactions with media over the years, but I just told him, listen, man, like, here's our site. We have a radio station that we're on. We are going to air your interview. Our host is very much looking forward to interviewing you. But that was the extent of my involvement. But
you ever seen him live wrestle?
Yes.
Didn't we see him at like a
it was a wrestle reunion really late in his career. This would have been around 2012-ish that he might have not even been announced in advance. It's just all of a sudden we were there at the show and Vader is added to the show. And it was kind of sad at this time that you're seeing him, that, it's Vader at, his mid to late 50s that he's trying to perform at. And that's unfortunate for me, is that, for a lot of people that especially just saw the WWE years, or when he came back that time, if you remember, this was around 2005. And he was part of like Jonathan Coachman's backup, and he runs down the ramp on Raw and he trips. And it's just unfortunate that that's going to be, for some people, if that's all you saw, your memories of Vader. But I mean, he had a terrific career in Japan and in WCW. Like his matches with Sting, I always felt like, as much as you want to look at whether it's Flair Steamboat or Flair Terry Funk, to me, Sting's maybe best opponent was Vader, more so than Flair. It was just those two just had a tremendous chemistry together, and Vader was he was a real great big man that you would have thought in WWE it would have just been a real easy fit, but it was not the case.
Yeah, even in that setting, seeing him at that like wrestling convention type of show, I mean, I was still pretty thrilled by seeing him then, because I just thought the charisma was still very much there, and he really did feel like a larger than life personality as soon as he got into the character, and was just like so great at like taunting to the crowd and just being Vader.
The mask really worked for him.
Man. Yeah, just a classic. Like one of my very fond memories of like, watching wrestling as a child is this guy as one of the lead villains. So like, the sort of the thing that JR calls him at the very end here is the greatest super heavyweight of all time. Would you do you have any thoughts? Do you agree, disagree? Who else would be in contention for that?
Super heavyweights.
Well, what is a super heavyweight, first of all?
What are we talking? 350 to 400 pounds. I
Like,
mean,
is the Undertaker considered a super heavyweight?
I don't think of it as a super heavyweight.
Okay, so like Andre, like who else could we term?
Like a Bam Bam
Bam.
Bigelow,
Yeah.
like Vader to me, just in terms of like where Vader ended up succeeding as like a main eventer, and like no, he was an unbelievable big man. Like you could certainly, if you want to argue that, you could. I'd have to give it like some thought, but yeah, he would be on that list. I would think at the very least. Like I just imagine like if like a kid first seeing him coming out with like the smoking, like the whole
Amazing.
getup, like
I
how
didn't
they
know.
even
I didn't
think-
know. Like they're saying Inoki came up with that.
they introduced it in Japan, so I don't know if it was Inoki himself, but that was introduced. But like
Amazing.
I saw that, I was like, how does someone even envision this contraption?
Japanese. That's the answer,
It was
man.
cool as hell. So there you go. That was Vader, and next week I think it's Tony Atlas next week. I don't have the list in front of me, but yes, Dark Side of the Ring continues. I would say this episode, I found it interesting. I don't know if it was one that like this is an absolute must-see of the season if you know the story of Vader, but again, like all of these episodes, I think it's the inclusion of the family is always, you're getting more depth than if you have just watched a guy's career or read about him. It's getting that kind of that side of things, and there was a very dark side here to Leon White, the person that kind of supersedes whatever the career was. Like this was someone that had lots of issues that unfortunately resulted in a divorce, and but at the end of it, like also a son that just idolized his father. That was very evident in this episode.
It was a well done profile on a professional wrestler. I think like showed me at least some new information that I didn't really know before. I still think the Borgo one was a much more of a holy shit like type of episode. One that it is almost like kind of harder to believe. But they've all three of them have been very well done so far.
Yeah, and Brian's feedback here is, I thought Dark Side on Vader was a good episode that could have been even better. The re-release of John's profile on Vader reminded me of the things they left out of this episode. If you just go by this, you would think Vader's career ended with WWF. Joe Thurman was quite the pull. No mention of Foley losing his ear with Vader.
That's
Yeah,
more of a Foley story, isn't it?
I
than
guess
Vader's
so.
story.
And yeah,
You already had one body part being lost, being discussed, I guess.
Yes, and I mean they also we can mention they also focused on the whole Kuwait deal with the talk show host and Vader maintaining that it was a work spot, but that they hadn't clued in the host, and yeah, he was like under house arrest for like over a week in Kuwait. So they had the footage of that as well. All right, well there you go. Those were that was Dark Side of the Ring for week number 3. We are going to sign off, so thanks to everyone for staying up with us on the Post Wrestling Cafe. On Thursday, we have Post Pro Res dropping. MCU Later is going to be out imminently with episode 8. And boy, we're getting violent. Getting very violent on this Dark Side.
Are we? Have you watched it already?
I've got like 20 minutes left. I'm actually going to watch it tonight before I go to sleep.
So what's the deal? Are you going to be on with them?
I don't know. There's 2 episodes left. There's no way I'm doing anything next week. Next week
is the
Killer.
finale.
Oh, is next week the finale?
Mm-hmm.
It's only 9 episodes, not 10?
Yeah, I believe so.
I will not be on this season, I don't think. Next week is just not possible.
Yeah. Next week.
Unfortunately, I am a follower in spirit of MCU Later.
Understood.
On behalf of everyone, Wai, we want to wish you and Pauline all the best, and we look forward to you returning and gracing us with your presence when you are a father of 2.
Thank you very much. And I'm here to wish you the very best next week when you give birth to a great series of podcasts and work at postwrestling.com.
Way's already told me, don't you dare bother me while I'm
No,
gone.
that's not true.
He's blocked my number.
No,
yes.
I truly want to thank you and the entire team in advance for what is, you know, I mean, I feel awful, honestly, like not missing WrestleMania week, but I you know, I don't really have much of a choice. So I'm very looking forward to the time away. But yeah, good luck next week. It's a lot of work.
Well, it will be, but we've got the army enlisted, so
Yeah,
we're all good
yeah.
to go. We'll have a lot
Shout
of
out
great stuff
Simon,
next week.
great job, our intern with behind the scenes with all of these shows. So you'll be seeing, you guys won't be seeing him, but he will be manning the ship behind the scenes along with Two-Way Ray jumping in as well on Fridays. So
Awesome stuff. Well, I'm in good hands. So thanks to everyone for joining us. I'm live Friday night with Neil Flanagan, and we will be chatting after 3 hours of SmackDown. God help us. Goodbye.